Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we are talking about all things Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And I know you're probably like, what? I mean, Saturn has been in Aquarius for quite a while, but I guarantee you this shift into Pisces is going to change a lot of things. Plus, we're having our Saturn return in Pisces because it's kind of finishing up all of the zodiac signs. So I'm going to tell you all about that and so much more. Stay tuned. So let's talk about this. So on March 7th, and I'm going to use that date just because I know people are on different time zones, but for me, it's March 7th. So March 7th, Saturn makes its move from the sign of Aquarius into the sign of Pisces. And it'll be in Pisces until, let's see, February 14th, 2026. So it's kind of completing its cycle in Aquarius. And a lot of times when a planet kind of like complete something in one sign, it will kind of give us a gift. So I'm going to explain that in just a second. But Saturn first moved into Aquarius back in December 2020. And a lot of people heard about the Great Conjunction and all of the energy. And a lot of people were like, it really didn't turn out to be a whole much. It did. It's still playing out. Because you have to understand, Saturn is not only the Lord of Karma, but it's one of those, like, he is the Lord of the underworld. And so things are been brewing underneath there. So you're kind of like, I don't see anything. It's like, it's coming. I promise you it's coming. So it's kind of like, think about everything that you've learned during that time frame. I know I have learned so much, and it's one of those, you're just like, wow, when you really think about everything that you learned from December 2020. Have you set new boundaries? Have you set new boundaries of relationships and responsibility? Have you taken your responsibility for what's gone on? And those are kind of all of those Saturn ideas. And this is kind of coming into that deeper thought of like, really, I didn't think I'd change this way. If you really think about it, we have changed so much, not only on a personal level, but on a global level as well. Saturn is kind of like one of those really mean teachers, and I had one of those really mean teachers when I was in second grade. Not a nice teacher at all. Very strict. And so it's one of those, but it pushes us to our full potential. And they really do push us in some ways that you're kind of like, really, this is a hard lesson to learn. It has been some really hard lessons to learn. But it's one of those, it's really good. It's potentially changing who we are in some amazing ways. So Saturn is also known as the Lord of Karma. And as it travels through the zodiac, it's ensuring that all of the karma is like checked and balanced out. So it's kind of like that balance sheet. So it's kind of like you're in deficit here, you're in positive here. So it's kind of like balancing everything out. And a lot of times people kind of wait until like it's changing signs, and then all of a sudden you'll see everything come out and you're just like, oh my gosh, there it is. Now that we have Saturn moving in and kind of feeling that shift a little bit, all of those old Saturn in the sign of Aquarius lessons are going to be reaching its climax. So everything that you've been kind of putting to work for the last couple of years is going to just like, boom, here it goes. And it's really going to be showing us where we are going to find closure, where we're going to wrap things up and kind of like, okay, I'm past that, or I've moved past that, and I'm ready for something new and different. But before Saturn leaves Aquarius, it's kind of make sure that all of your karmic deliveries are going to be coming in, because karma is going to be big during this time frame. The last few days of Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is going to be really huge. It's going to bring in a lot of interesting energy for all of us. And like I said, it's those last few weeks or a few days that are really going to be like, boom, here it is. Like, here's your gifts. This is everything that you've been asking for. The person that's been holding you back, now they're going to get fired. Or the person that's not been treating you right, they're going to get it treated that way in front of everybody. So it's kind of like that karmic, like, boom, here it comes again. And Saturn is getting ready to start a whole new cycle in Pisces. Look out for gifts from the universe. Like, it is just opening up right now. now. Stay open to what comes your way and think about like, how can I use this? How can I use it? If I'm going this direction, what else can I do in this area? Kind of opening up your thoughts of like, ta-da, here we go, into some new and different areas. See if you can honor some of the hard lessons that you learned, like giving someone else a hand, or kind of giving them some understanding. Like, I understand I went through something like this not too long ago, and giving them that understanding and that like, yes, we've done this. But I will tell you, kind of Saturn moving into Pisces will happen March 7th, and it is going to be kind of really getting a better look at our responsibility. What are we taking? Now, I will tell you, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So it's really kind of considered Saturn's move into kind of like completing some bigger cycles, and Saturn's return as well. As it moves into Pisces as a collective, it's kind of like, okay, we finished all of this. We've been through all of these signs, and now what's going to come up next? Moving into this karmic lesson of gifts and Saturn, it is going to be a great time to kind of really open up to that water sign of Pisces, kind of like representing the light and the dark, because in water we have the light and the dark. We also have like creativity and compassion and kind of this flow of everything around us. So that's really important to keep in mind. This free-flowing energy will open us up to things around the world and opening up our hearts to so many different things. Now, Saturn is very grounded, very earthy. It rules over things like law, boundaries, responsibilities, restrictions, and those are going to be coming up really strong at this time frame. And there's going to be some changes in this area, and it could be also how you think about that law or that boundary that other people have set, or even taking your own responsibilities. Like, I never thought I'd take responsibility for this, but I am, and I can see that like every day in my business, kind of like, wow, this is really cool that people are really stepping up and looking at this in so many different areas. Saturn's energy can kind of feel like a really amazing wake-up call, but usually kind of like cold water to the face. Not like, wow, this is really so much fun. It's like, wow, these realizations are coming in, the consequences for people action. So it's kind of like, if you have any consequences coming at you, make sure that you're working through them very quickly so you can get rid of all of that. Saturn's presence in Pisces could make us feel a little heavy because this is usually a very watery, intuitive sign in that kind of Piscean energy, and this is a great force to kind of get some little rigid and kind of like, okay, let's get some grounding here, let's get stuff. But I guarantee you, you can still have your feet planted firmly on the ground and your head in the stars. Just know that that's coming around you. So let's talk about kind of like this balance between the two energies, kind of with Saturn in Pisces and Saturn in Aquarius, and kind of what are these two balances that we really need to be aware of right now. It's really bringing in a very tangible ideas of like, this energy is rooted in something that's firm and solid. And it's one of those, it will allow us to kind of open up our creativity and allow a lot of us to kind of bring in our life into kind of like a 3D, 4D, and even higher dimensions for ourselves, and kind of like seeing things in a different way, kind of seeing it as a master, not as a student. If Pisces in energy is kind of like the flow of things, it's one of those, Saturn is like taking note of that, or journaling that down, or kind of keeping track of all of that. Like, I learned this at this age and I learned this at this age. That is really going to be a great way to kind of bring in these two balances. Saturn in Pisces in the real world, this is going to be bringing in creativity and innovations and spirituality, and really this spiritual awakening for a lot of people. And I've heard about this for a long time. A lot of people looking up like spiritual growth, spiritual awakening, how do I do it, what's it about. And so I think that's kind of the cool part, that people are kind of like, yes, I'm ready to step in all of this energy. I'm ready to move forward in this. And Saturn is kind of like representing all of the ideas and giving them roots and kind of giving them something firm to hold on to. It's one of those, you can be spiritual and still be grounded. That's the balance of it. Saturn is that grounding energy that really, like, yes, you can ground it. And kind of like that Pisces energy is kind of like that pie in the sky, or anything's possible, kind of that sort of energy. But that Saturn is bringing in this very practical, very grounding energy. And it's going to add a lot of creativity is going to have a lot of creativity put into it by Pisces energy, and kind of finding that balance of like being structured but being flowing at the same time. Pisces is also connected to religion and spirituality, and that's why I said like we are going to have so many people looking at spirituality, kind of looking at their own kind of spiritual growth, awakening, all of those things of kind of like, yes, I'm really ready to start this now. And this can get a wake-up call of kind of like this energy and this personal touch of like, what are my attitudes and my belief about my spiritual growth? Not everybody else's. It's one of those like a very personal, like, what is my idea of spiritual growth? What is your personal idea of spiritual growth? What does that mean to you? What does spiritual growth mean to someone else? What does spiritual awakening mean to you? What does it mean to someone else? And kind of like, wow, I never thought of it this way. As the last sign of the zodiac, it is a little bit of all the other 12 signs in Pisces. So you kind of see a little bit of those in all the other ones. These little seeds of energy hit us at different times, and Saturn can be ever evolving, and always a good idea to come up with like responsibility, kind of picking that responsibility. I'm taking my fair share of what happened. I'm taking my fair share of this, of what happened, and choosing for your actions, kind of like taking that accountability for what you've created in your world. Saturn desires for us to take responsibility, and when we take our fair share of the responsibility, it changes everything, because usually what people are doing is pointing the finger at someone else, and all it's doing is putting your power and your own personal power, your own personal intuition and everything else onto someone else, and you're making them way more powerful than you're making yourself. Saturn it always is imposing like restrictions and boundaries, and can make us feel a little stuck, like, now I have to do all the paperwork for all this. It's one of those, it's finding out who is that perfect balance to balance you out. If you're more the creative person, there are people that are more grounded that love doing the numbers. They totally love doing the numbers. So it's kind of that great balance. Some of the themes that we're going to be seeing pop up in Saturn in Pisces, I will say probably the first one is like religious issues, and kind of like in all formats. I will say spiritual guidance coming in, the spiritual acceptance for different ones. And I think it's going to be really interesting of seeing this powerful surge towards spiritual awakening and your spiritual growth of what you want. I will say a rebalance of kind of like giving and receiving passion, kind of a greater emphasis on like the well-being of others, kind of like that mental health, not just the physical health, but the mental health. I will say kind of the desires to kind of show compassion for other people. And I will tell you that that's one of those that I've seen in little bits like from time to time, but you're going to start seeing that flow even more. I will tell you, you're kind of the one I thought was really interesting is probably revisiting the traditions and the religions of your ancestors. So people really looking up, not just like your ancestry, you know, where did we come from and all that kind of stuff, but what was their religion? What did they believe? What did that culture believe? And so that's going to be bringing in a lot of amazing energy. And I will tell you, it's going to be awesome. Kind of charting your own Pisces cycle. So the last time Saturn moved through the sign of Pisces was 1994 to 1996. So if you weren't around during that time frame, you can pass this one by. So if you can remember what, thinking back, what were kind of the themes coming up for you during this time frame? It's not all of exactly the same thing happening again. You will notice similar themes, but kind of like the lessons are like the advanced lessons. So it's kind of like you learned algebra in one grade, and then the next grade you learned a little bit more, and you kind of learned different parts of it, although it's kind of like still called algebra. This is kind of what we're going through. So whatever you were going through in 1994 to 1996, those themes, that energy is going to be coming around again. And so it's kind of like, what were you going through? What were you thinking about? What were those changes? And we're going to have those advanced level issues coming in. So it's kind of interesting. I will tell you that if you're not sure of all of this energy, make sure that you're ready for Saturn to go into the sign of Pisces March 7th and get some really great insights. And I will tell you, probably the best one is going to give you some great insights is kind of doing some progressions moving forward and to time on February 19th in that new moon Pisces. It's going to be really bringing a lot of stuff. So what were you thinking during that time frame? Just a few days ago, what were you thinking? What was that energy coming up? You can also look into kind of like what was going on in the world during that time frame, 1994 to 1996, and kind of like what were the things. And that may give you a great insight into what's coming in for you and what should you be expecting. What is the energy that you should be expecting during this time frame? And the energies of things changing around you is going to be a really great one. So let's do some angel cards and get kind of our mind like literally wrapped around Saturn in the sign of Pisces, because we're letting go of Aquarius. Even though it's still got some energy for us, we've got some changes to come in. This one's a Vesta, and this is the Hearth, and this is kind of really thinking back of that kind of like, where was your heart during that time frame? Or what was in the heart of what was going on in the world? What were the things that were going on in the world? Because we're going to have a little bit of that theme, but it's going to be a whole advanced level. Chiron, this is healing. And I get this is coming in a lot with kind of like that 3D, 4D, higher dimension energy coming in for a lot of people that are really kind of like, I'm ready for all of this. I'm ready to make these changes. So they might not have been ready way back then, but they're ready now. This is serious, and this is about nurturing. Nurture those ideas. Nurture them in you. Kind of what are the changes that you really want to bring in forward to you? What are those changes that you're really ready to make at this time? What are the changes? What are the changes you're ready to make? Kind of the last one is Juno, and this is all about partnerships. Where are those partnerships that were coming around? Kind of what is that energy? Because if you look at the sign of Pisces, we've got those two fish swimming in a circle. It's two swimming in a circle. And so kind of like, what are those directions? And a lot of times, like if you really look at them, they kind of look like they're going in different directions. They may be doing a circle, but it's one of those, they could take off any moment into different directions. And that's kind of what Pisces energy does sometimes, is kind of send us in some different directions. But partnerships are like that. You do this and I'll do this. So we're dividing and conquering, though that energy is coming in really, really strong right now. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know that we'll be talking again soon.